students. They are students of Semantics and Lexicology course. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our new live lecture. It's lecture number 9, and it will focus on phrasal and sentential semantics, or phrase and sentence semantics. The outline of our lecture today is as follows. We have questions and comments, if there are any. Phrasal and sentential semantics, this is the topic of our lecture, and we have 4 presentations in the second half of our lecture today, and it will be after praying, inshallah. We have a break, inshallah, and we'll give time as usual, 10 minutes for each participant to present his or her topics, and 5 extra minutes for questions and answers from the classmates. Okay. Do you have any questions, guys? In fact, I received a question from Hadil, and I shared it with the group. Before going to this question, if you have any other question. So we are going to discuss this question about heteronyms and homophones and so on. So, but if you have any questions, please let me know. You should know that I have uploaded the guidelines on the research assignment or research paper assignment. So it's now in the Moodle. So I give you a month, a whole month, from 15th of November to 15th of December. So the paper will be due by December 15th. If you haven't decided your topic yet, if you haven't chosen your paper topic yet, please do it as soon as possible. Let me know about your topic. Some students already communicated and contacted me and asked about the feasibility of topic X, topic Y. I approved some. So please, as we did with the presentations, so I recommend you do the same. Choose a topic, consult me, and then work on your topic within the guidelines or instructions given in the Moodle. So they are clear, and still if you have any problem with any instruction or comment, so please let me know. Okay, so let's go to this question about
دكتور الاتندنس شيت ما طلعتش.
Where in the classroom? I think it's there, scheduled for today. في حد عنده مشكلة في الحضور والغياب بتاعت؟
لا طلعت يا دكتور، طلعت
موجود. So
خلاص
please
اطلع وارجع ثاني.
check again and just click your attendance by choosing the yes button and join or rejoin us, please. So great. So the question I received from Hadil, and I think Hadil, as she said, she composed these 2 questions. She wrote them herself. إذن يعني بقدر أقول هديل بتبيع امتحانات. So she can design some questions for.
Yet I don't know the answer yet. يعني فأنا غلطت.
We are going to discuss these questions. In fact, one of the students gave an answer. I think Reem El-Masri gave an answer to these to each of these questions. So let's, before giving the answers, let me distinguish between these four terms. As you can see, we have morphemes, homo and hetero. Homo. If you check the dictionary, so homo means the same, or so there is similarity, and hetero means a difference. So now we defined these four terms when we discussed lexical relations topic. So we talked about what we mean by homonyms, homographs, homophones, heteronyms. So just to make it simple, I found a nice diagram. This is the diagram. And it summarizes these four terms. So we may have the same spelling and the same pronunciation, or different spelling and the same pronunciation, or same spelling and different pronunciation. So we have, so we have four.
Doctor, somebody wants to enter. Excuse me, doctor.
Okay, so welcome to. So now we have 19 participants. If there is anybody who is still waiting for entering or joining the class, please let me know. So again, we have, let's just give examples of these four possibilities. So same spelling, same pronunciation, different spelling, same pronunciation, or same spelling and different pronunciation. And you can see the four colors. So we have the blue color for homonyms, and we have the red color for homophones, and we have the orange color for, let's say, the homographs, and we have heteronyms colored by this violet or a bluish purple color. So let's give examples of each of these four terms. Now, homonyms, as you can see from the diagram, are of three possibilities. They can be, so two words, so again, two words. In these four terms, we should know that there is difference in meaning. So all these forms involve or entail difference in meaning. But sometimes there is the same spelling, but difference in pronunciation, or the same pronunciation but difference in spelling, or both, same spelling, same pronunciation. Now, homonyms, the blue, are words that can be of the same spelling and the same pronunciation. Examples, you can write examples: bank as a financial institution, and bank as an edge or side of a river. So these two words involve homonymy. بمعنى we have words that are or share some features. Now these features are in this example, sameness in spelling and sameness in pronunciation. Bank, bank. But homonyms are also words that share the pronunciation but differ in spelling. share the pronunciation but different spelling, and you can write meet as a verb to meet someone, and meat, which is the food, M-E-A-T. So again, we have homonymy, meat, the verb يقابل, and meat, the food. So difference in spelling. A third possibility is we have sameness in spelling, but difference in pronunciation. And we can give example, B-O-W is sometimes pronounced as it can be pronounced bow or bow. So bow as a verb, ينحني, so to move forward.
Doctor, the word
And-
read.
Yes, so it is possible. But now, here we have, so bow and bow. So now these are three possible instances or possible situations of homonymy. Now, the red.
Dr. Israel Cord wants to enter also. Sorry for keeping it down.
They have already entered. Okay, thank you very much. Tamam. Now, homophones, the red color, are words that share pronunciation, homophones, and they may share also the spelling, or they just share the pronunciation but differ in spelling. Example of sameness in pronunciation and sameness in spelling, we can say bank, the same example, but you see here just sameness in pronunciation and spelling. Bank, or ground, and so on. So the same spelling and the same pronunciation. Sometimes this homophones include words that share the pronunciation but differ in spelling. And we can include sea, bahar, and siyara, and beat, yuqabil, and so we have here homophones sharing the pronunciation. Now, homographs are words that share the spelling and differ in pronunciation or share this pronunciation. So we have here two possible situations. And we can use the same examples given under homonymy. We can say now same spelling and same pronunciation bank. So bank are homographs. يشتركون في الكتابة, homographs. And also now bow and bow also share the spelling but differ in pronunciation. So they are homographs. So two possible situations. Now heteronyms are a subfield of homographs. They are words that share the spelling but differ in pronunciation. So they share the spelling but different pronunciation. So we can give examples. Who can give examples? So sharing the spelling but different pronunciation. So bow and bow, sharing the spelling but different pronunciation. Now back to the questions given by Hadil. Now all homophones are heteronyms. False. Because we learned that heteronyms share the spelling, but they must be different in pronunciation. So to say that they are homophones, they share the pronunciation. So number one is false.
العكس طيب heteronyms, all heteronyms are homophones بيطلع صح.
No. So again, the idea is homophones, we share the pronunciation. But hetero, and now we have now a difference. Now, we don't have the same pronunciation in heteronomy. تاخدي بالك. We don't have the same pronunciation in heteronomy. So,
صحيح. صح.
to see whether you say all homophones are heteronyms or all heteronyms are homophones, both statements are false. Now, number two, as Rim al-Masri said, is also false. When homographs are homophones, they are heteronyms. We have homographs as homophones. So bank and bank. Bank as a financial institution and bank as an edge over river, they are homographs, sharing the same pronunciation, sharing the same spelling and the same pronunciation, yes. So sharing the pronunciation and the spelling. But we learned that heteronyms must be different in pronunciation. Heteronyms must be different in pronunciation. So we can say all heteronyms are homographs, but not vice versa. When we say homographs when homographs are homophones, they are heteronyms, this is false. مش ممكن يكون يشتركوا في اللفظ لفظا ويشتركوا في الكتابة, the spelling, الهجاء. And we call them heteronyms. No. Homographs could be words sharing both the spelling and the pronunciation. But heteronyms are a subfield or sub-branch or subcategory of homographs. They share the spelling, but they must be different in pronunciation. تمام? Any questions?
Doctor, sorry for keeping interrupting you. Mu'tasim is waiting for 15 minutes.
Sorry. تمام بس العدد ما زالش. Okay, so we have okay, so معتصم, are you there now? معتصم معقول لسه ما حدش يعني. So tell him to leave the program and rejoin. قولوا له يا اخوان يرجع يخرج من البرنامج جوجل ميت.
He's in now. He's in.
Okay, he's in. Very good. So when you have difficulty in joining Meet program, Google Meet, please go out of the program and then rejoin. So it could be like a technical problem. So let's move now to this huge topic, sentential semantics, or sometimes it is called phrasal semantics. So we may have like sentence instead of the adjective sentential, phrase semantics instead of saying phrasal semantics. Okay, so I sent you some questions that cover this topic. So I hope that each of you had the time to check the material and come with answers to these questions. So let me call some guys or some students.
Yes, Doctor.
Omar Salah. So the first question. Omar Salah. What is the principle of compositionality? Yes, Omar. Are you there, Omar? مش شايف المشتركين. Okay.
Yes, Doctor, I'm here.
Great. So do you have the answer to this question? It's an easy question. Just the definition of principle of compositionality. So, and you just have 4 pages to read, not a whole chapter or a whole book.
Yes, Doctor.
So you are a graduate student, and you should be responsible for such tasks. So what is the principle of compositionality, Omar?
The principle of compositionality states the meaning of a phrase or sentence depends on both on meaning of its word and how those words are combined structurally.
So it's not enough to learn the meaning of words. You remember
Yes.
we talked about lexical semantics. So knowing the meaning of words or vocabulary items. So principle of compositionality requires or states that we should be aware of the meaning of words or the meanings of words, and also how these words can be combined. So there are the rules that govern their combination. So how to put them together in phrases or sentences. So it's not enough to learn the vocabulary items of a certain language and say that now I can speak the language. Knowing a language requires knowing its the meanings of its words and the rules that govern the combinations of these words, putting them together into phrases and sentences. Okay, so question 2. I sent you 2 sentences. Huda visited Samira. Samira visited Huda. And now, why do these 2 sentences differ in meaning? Ziyad Abu Tariq.
Yes, here I think the difference concerning the receiver or the doer of the action.
So, but now why are they different in meaning? Why are they different in meaning? السؤال واضح. لماذا اختلف معنى الجملة ألف عن معنى الجملة باء? Why are they different in meaning?
Here, number 1, Huda do the visit, and Samira receives Huda.
How do you know that? How do you know?
From the structure.
What does it mean? So we have
There is
the position.
So
Position.
we learned last time this idea of word order.
Yeah, word
So
order.
in English, word order is a fixed like so.
Yes.
Pattern. So and when in order to know who does what to whom or for whom, we should know this idea of word order. So now the word order in English determines the meaning of an utterance or a sentence.
Yes.
Although A and B have the same words, we have Huda repeated it twice in the 2 sentences. Samira repeated it twice and visited repeated twice, but the meanings of the 2 sentences. So we have 2 different meanings. So totally different meanings, and the meaning, the difference in meaning results in from what? Results from the difference in word order. How these words are combined. And we learned that in English, we don't have case marking like Arabic, which has flexibility in word order. In English, we have no case markers. So that's why we have a fixed word order pattern. Tamam?
Yes.
Okay. Now, question 3. Let's have
عبد الله يا دكتور عشان النت مش مستقر عندي.
نسمع فاطمة قوش ونرجع لعبد الله. فاطمة قوش. Name 2 types of paraphrasing and give examples. Fatima.
I'm here, doctor, but I'm here, but I couldn't see the article for special circumstances. I'm so sorry.
In fact,
I'm so sorry.
Okay, doctor.
يعني I told you that reading, preparing for the lecture is very useful. So I recommend you read the
I know,
material,
doctor, but
not a long material. Abdullah, let's go to Abdullah.
Yes, doctor. For the 2 types of paraphrasing is paraphrase which contain just synonyms of words and paraphrasing which contains structural differences. For example, synonyms, and...
So 1 second. Could you give me the name of the type? So we
words
have
paraphrasing, word paraphrasing and structural paraphrasing.
It is not, it is, yeah, we can accept it as word, but we have a technical term to learn. It
Synonyms.
is called,
Synonyms.
it is called lexical paraphrasing.
Yes, lexical paraphrasing and structural paraphrasing.
And structural or syntactic paraphrasing. These are the two types, and
Yes.
I recommend you take notes. Now, lexical paraphrasing results from
changing of words by other words.
Two sentences with the same structure and all have the same, both have the same words, except with difference in one, and we have synonymy. So when we have synonymy in so a synonym in two words as synonymous in the two sentences, this type is called lexical paraphrasing. And you can give example. One example, Abdullah.
Example of lexical paraphrasing in when she just for they ran the bill up, or they ran up the bill. This is structural paraphrasing.
This is not
structural paraphrasing.
So just have two sentences. It's simple, Abdullah and guys. So just have two sentences. Change one word into its synonym. It's simple. So
yes, doctor.
Yes, Abu Tariq.
Yes, doctor.
The exam is important. The exam is significant.
So significant and important can be used as synonyms. So just the topic is significant, the topic is important, this room is large, this room is big. So we have now lexical paraphrasing. The second type, Abdullah, is called syntactic or structural paraphrasing. And it results from what? What leads to structural paraphrasing?
Changing the meaning,
the
words,
the style also.
The style, yeah, the style or the meaning.
Words, but joined differently, joined in in two different structural patterns. And you can give the example in the material: ran up the bill, or ran the bill up, or some other examples. We can include more examples like active and passive. So active and passive are examples of syntactic or structural paraphrasing. Still, we have the same meaning or almost the same meaning, but the structure is different. So the words are combined or are put together in different patterns, and the result is syntactic or structural paraphrasing. By the way, when we say active and passive involve of a certain sentence involve structural paraphrasing, it should be noted that we still have some slight difference in meaning, which is related to emphasis on. So when we say the room was cleaned by Najwa, instead of saying Najwa cleaned the room, we almost have the same meaning, and it's still we can exemplify structural paraphrasing using these two sentences. But again, there is some or little difference between Najwa cleaned the room and the room was cleaned by Najwa. When we say the room was cleaned by Najwa, there is like emphasis on the receiver of the action, the room. But almost we have the same meaning, and it is a good example of structural paraphrasing. Questions, guys? If you have any question, let me know.
Somebody wants to enter Salsabil.
Okay, Salsabil, welcome. Now we have 25 students. Thank you. مين اللي حكى؟ عماد؟ عمر, thank you very much. Okay. If you have any question, let me know. So don't hesitate to ask about anything related to these questions or points to ponder. Now, I need to buy a pen for Shelby. Now, the question is, why is this sentence ambiguous, and what are the two possible meanings? Now, Abir.
Yes, doctor.
Abir.
Okay.
The material sometimes has some new vocabulary items. Sometimes you need to check a dictionary. I recommend when you have a word, if you have, for example, a sentence, and the sentence has one word that is difficult, new to you. You are not familiar with this word. Now you can address this issue in two different ways. So now ask yourself, يا ريت نسكر المايك. Ask yourself this question: is the meaning of this word, the new word, essential to the meaning of the whole sentence? So تسأل نفسك, is the meaning of this new word essential to the meaning of the whole sentence? If the answer is no, simply skip it. If the answer is no, it's not essential to the meaning of the whole sentence, so leave it. So don't bother yourself with this new word. But now, if the answer is yes, it is essential to the meaning of the whole sentence, ask yourself another question. Can I guess the meaning from context? So if the answer is yes, do it. So try to build or develop your this skill of guessing meaning of new words from context. If the answer is yes, I can, so do it. If the answer is no, now we have the final result. Check a dictionary or ask a teacher or a friend or someone or a reference. So the same is with the same thing is with the material. So we need to be selective. If, for example, a word is important, so I need to buy a pen for Shelby. So now, if this is an ambiguous sentence, you should think of now two possibilities: either lexical ambiguity or syntactic or structural ambiguity. So most likely it is lexical ambiguity, and we have now homonymy, بمعنى a word with two different meanings. Now, which is now the word or the word that is most likely to be the or to be involving homonymy? Which one?
Yes, doctor. No, it's a pen.
Yes, doctor.
The word pen.
Pen.
So the
Can I
word
answer,
pen
doctor?
has different meanings, and now one of these meanings is this device. So a device used
To write.
to write with in ink. So this is one meaning. The other meaning is الناس اللي درست واشتغلت
Yes, doctor. Can I?
تفضل.
Yes, it's my turn, doctor. But you have answered.
Yes, عبير. تفضل.
Yes, the second meaning, maybe it's an enclosure to keep his goat. I search and I find it.
So it's like a cage, enclosure. فيها حيوطية كده, could be metal, could be wood. So it is a cage for زي قفص كده, for animals.
For animals, yes.
And so we have a pen as a device to write with, or this enclosure, so or this cage that is used to keep animals. So we have now two different meanings of the sentence: I need to buy a pen for Shelby. I need to buy a device, instrument, so to write with for Shelby. Or I need to buy this enclosure or cage. So you see how now
Yard, it's a
the
yard.
sentence is ambiguous, and the type of ambiguity is again lexical ambiguity, and you need to know. We studied this in lexical relations topic. We learned that homonymy creates ambiguity. Creates ambiguity. Back to lexical relations. اقرأ وشوف المحاضرة. We have two things: paraphrasing and ambiguity. And now we use them under sentence semantics or under phrase semantics. We talk about now not synonymy, so words with the same meaning, not homonymy, sharing pronunciation or spelling. We talk now about the idea of ambiguity and paraphrasing. So relations between sentences now, not between items in the dictionary or lexical items. So here we have, so lexical ambiguity results from what? كأكمل الفراغ. بالمناسبة, you should expect a quiz by the end of this week. Maybe Thursday or Friday or Saturday of next week. But in a couple of days, you will have quiz number 2. And you need to be ready for the quiz by reviewing the stuff we discussed after quiz number 1. تمام? So now, the lexical ambiguity results from أكمل.
Homonyms.
Homonyms create lexical ambiguity.
True.
So they can create lexical ambiguity. Now, if I ask you about now, lexical paraphrasing results from أكمل. So, blah, blah.
Synonym.
Synonymy. So results from synonyms. So lexical paraphrasing results from synonymy or synonyms. تمام. Number 5. Fatin Hussein. Are you there, Fatin?
Yes, doctor.
Go ahead, Fatin. So
Okay.
visiting relatives can be boring.
Okay, we have here.
Now, so Abir did well. Okay, so we have here. Tamam. And Fatin now. Go ahead, Fatin.
Yes, here we have the sentence is ambiguous because it carries two meanings, and the ambiguity is due to the structural ambiguity. Here we have the first.
You remember, thank you. Now you remember this principle of compositionality. So how words are put together. Now sometimes we see relationship between words in a sentence in two different patterns, or having two different patterns, or having two different structures. Now, what are the two possible meanings? So again, we have ambiguity involved in this sentence, more than one meaning, and this type of ambiguity is structural or syntactic ambiguity. Now, why? Who can just give me so the possible meanings first?
Yes, doctor. The first meaning.
Fatin.
Yeah, the first meaning that the relatives. So this could be boring, and the second one, relatives who visit you, can be boring. So the second meaning, like treating visiting as an adjective. So
now we have visiting relatives are joined in two different patterns, or can be combined, or can be viewed as belonging to two different patterns. One is visiting as an adjective, modifying the noun relatives, like tall relatives, or short relatives, or fat relatives, or bad relative. So we have an adjective modifying the noun relatives. So now we talk about relatives can be boring. So when we say visiting is just an adjective, so when Visiting is an adjective, so please. So relatives can be boring. So relatives who visit. You see how, so who visit. So relatives can be boring. Now the second meaning, the second possibility is that we have visiting used as what? As a gerund. Get it in second, your mind. Turn off your mind, please. Now visiting as a gerund, so we can say to visit. So to visit, so it's now, so the process. So we are not now talking about the relatives, we talk about the process of visiting. So to visit relatives, so not the relatives. So now visiting can be boring. So we have now two possible meanings. Either relatives can be boring or visiting can be boring, the process. And that's why we have two different meanings. The structural ambiguity results from what? Viewing the words as belonging to two or more different patterns or structures. Questions. The same thing is with this sentence. We have here the boy saw the man with the telescope.
Yes, doctor.
Can I answer it, doctor?
Yes,
Ahmed
doctor.
Lulu, can I answer it?
So we have Israel Kurd.
Yes,
is
doctor.
There, so go
yes,
ahead.
I'm here. Yes, doctor.
So go ahead, Israel.
The boy saw the man with the telescope. It has two meanings. The first one, maybe the boy, the telescope is like a machine, and the man is seeing the boy saw the man during the machine telescope. The second meaning, maybe the boy saw the man who is holding a telescope in his hand.
Great. So now the type of ambiguity involved here is called structural or syntactic ambiguity.
Yes, syntactic. Yes.
Because now the ambiguity is with the telescope. Now, is now this phrase, the prepositional phrase, used to modify so the man بمعنى does this mean the man was carrying?
Yes, doctor. One of the meaning, yes.
This is one meaning. So we
one
use
meaning,
it,
yes. A man with a
the boy saw the man who was
holding
carrying the telescope. So this means that this prepositional phrase is an adjective phrase to modify the man. He was carrying, or who was carrying. Now the second meaning is the way of seeing. So we have now the boy saw the man. How did he see the man? So
using the telescope.
So bimana, the boy used a telescope to see the man.
Preposition.
Yes, so he used a telescope to see the man. So we have two possible structures. وطبعا ممكن, so you can diagram the two structures. So we have S, and then we have NP and VP. Now so we have verb and we have NP. Now NP, so we have the verb so, and the man with the telescope could be now the NP. But now, which means that the NP can be NP and another PP. To modify another diagram, this is one diagram, another diagram to have the VP diagram this way, a V and NP. And here we have, so the way. So it's not now part of the NP. It's part of how to modify. So how to modify seeing, or this the way of seeing. So where the man with the telescope. So PP here is like away from PP here. So you see how the two structures are different. So one is PP under VP, and one PP, the other is PP under the NP. So when it is under NP, it means that it modifies the man. So the first NP. So NP is the noun phrase, and this prepositional phrase is to modify the man. يعني صاحب أو الذي كان يحمل. So he is alive. Now we need now to negate this sentence in two different ways.
Yes, doctor.
So
Yes, doctor.
Islah.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
Go ahead, Islah. So quickly, please.
Okay, here words have antonyms, so we can negotiate it by he's dead, and by using antonyms, he's not alive, using syntactic negation.
So we have two different ways to negate sentences in language. One is by using antonymy to give the opposite meaning, like a complementary antonymy. He is dead. So he is dead is now the negative of he is alive. Now this is called negation. You are using antonymy or like certain lexical items. Now the second way is to use a syntactic negation. How? By including this adverb of negation, not. So he is not alive. Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Welcome.
Now this is, I think, a simple question. I think we already answered this question. Hadil, is learning a language merely learning the words of that language and what they mean?
Of course not. No, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh, we need to know. So we should think of this principle of compositionality.
Yes.
So not now just learning the words result in learning a language.
There is something called pragmatics.
We need to think of how these words are related in terms of now syntactic rules and semantic rules and so on. And you talked about now practice. So now how
the context.
So now there are rules in terms of syntax. We have syntactic rules to combine these words. And now the relationship, so we have sometimes syntax results in meaningless utterances. Still, we need to think of the semantic relations. So to eat, for example, something, so this thing should be eatable, so to be eaten. So not anything can be eaten. So again, we have semantic rules and syntactic rules. And so in order to know or to learn a language, it's not enough نروح على القاموس والصفحة 13 وسمع وبعد كده 14 وهكذا. So this is not how to learn a language. Of course, learning vocabulary items, their meanings is important, but still we need to know how to put these words together in combinations. I mean, according to rules of that language, language X or language Y or language Z. Question. Now, how is interpreting red balloon and large balloon similar and different? So this means that we have similarity and difference when we interpret these two phrases. Now let's have Nuha Qishra.
Yes,
Nuha. Is Nuha there? سمعاني يا نهى؟ No, is absent.
Yes, doctor. عبد الكريم
Okay.
can I answer?
غادة هنية. Is غادة there? معانا يا غادة؟
Yes, doctor, I can hear you.
تمام تمام. Let's see how you. So what similarities and what differences are there when you work on interpreting these two phrases?
Right. When we interpret the red balloon, we have the properties. We have the semantic property of redness and added to the properties of balloon. And
So now this, are you talking about similarities or differences?
هو مش موضح في السم.
السؤال واضح. في تشابه وفي اختلاف. انت استعملت جزئية يعني ممكن انا يعني اساعدك. So this is nice. What you said is fine, but you can use the same technique to consider sameness or similarities. Now adding the properties of red to the properties of balloon. Now we have red balloon. Similarly, when we have كملي يلا. So when we have
large balloon.
Yes, so we have now an adjective which has semantic properties that are used, that are added. No, don't now. So forget about this point. This has to do with differences. We are talking about similarities. So we have two phrases. Each has an adjective. Red is an adjective and large is an adjective. And each modifies the noun balloon. Now, in terms of similarity, we have the properties of red added to the properties of balloon. Similarly, we have the properties of large added to the properties of balloon. So we talk about now interpreting a phrase with an adjective modifying a noun. So we have similarities. Now talking about different. Kamli says.
Now if we add the word da to form the red balloon, the expression means a particular instance of a balloon that is red.
تمام. طيب.
On the other hand, we have large balloon, which means a large for a balloon, and it has like as I said, that has a relative concept. What is large for a balloon?
So redness, this property of red, is different from the property of large. In terms of what? In terms of what? Now the property of large, so this largeness is a relative concept.
Yes.
But the property of red, so this concept of redness, أحمر, we don't have this idea of a relative concept. It's like absolute. الأحمر بغض النظر إلى حجمه. So we don't. So red balloon, red pen, red something. So we have this idea. So redness is different from largeness. In terms of what? Now we have a large. Something that is large. We talk about now this idea of largeness in terms of as a relative concept. So and the material has three different phrases with the large. What are they? We have large balloon or large house.
Yeah.
And we have a large insect or الحشرة الكبيرة هذه ولا cockroach.
So what is large for a balloon and small for a house or a gargantuan for a cockroach.
Very big. So very big. Or so huge. So still we talk about now this idea of large as a relative concept. And as users of a language, we know these concepts, whether now they are relative or absolute. هي الأمور نسبية ولا مطلقة. So we can tell, so part of your knowledge about language and learning a language includes or entails or requires now learning. So whether now this concept has some relative stuff or absolute stuff. Okay, so thank you. Now, please turn off your mics. أنا شواكيش. I can hear hammers. وداني كده. Guys, please. تمام. So adjective-noun combinations are complex in terms of semantic rules. Why? في حد يعرف؟ So خليل.
Yes, Doctor. May I answer, Abdullah?
Go ahead, خليل. لو نسمع خليل. Now think of phrases in the material that include.
Doctor, may I answer, Abdullah? Abdullah, may I answer?
خليل نرجع لعبد الله بس لأن خليل في الأول. خليل معتصم.
Yes, sir. Hadil.
Yes, Doctor. معتصم is.
Go ahead.
أنا قبل يا معتصم اسمع.
لا أنا ما ردتش على هديل. I'm calling by.
لا تمام ماشي تمام. تفضلي معتصم.
So معتصم was called. So to give him a chance. Okay, معتصم. Yes, go ahead.
I think that the modifier of the adjective sometimes do not attribute to a kind or to the kind of the head of when it is known. So the adjective belay or the head of the phrases like enforce friends or alleged murderer.
What's now the difference between?
Yes, Doctor.
There are adjectives that can contribute to the modified noun.
A close friend, a false friend.
Yes, Doctor.
Murderer. What's now the difference between, let's say, tall versus tall friend or close friend versus a false friend and alleged murderer? What's now the point involved? Why are the semantic rules of such combinations, adjective-noun combinations, are different?
There is a contradiction here that the head that can't be, for example, a modifier in this in some exceptions.
Yes. So now, when we say a close friend or a generous friend, so it's a kind. So we have a friend.
Kind of a friend.
And then we have a kind of a friend. So when we have such combination, a close friend or a generous friend or a helpful friend, we have here a friend so modified. So a kind of a friend.
Doctor,
to say a false friend, now the word false now negates this. So we are not referring to any kind of friend.
Yes.
So
may I answer the question?
Do you have a comment, Abdullah?
It is not a comment, but why the semantics? The answer, because there is 3 types of adjectives. One of them, because adjectives sometimes added to the nouns, but in contrast, sometimes it belie the nouns, and in other times it adds nothing. Nothing.
What's the meaning of belie?
belie معنى انه يكذب او يخفف او لا يعني contract.
Negate. So could be to belie. So not a false, not a kind of a friend. So a false friend. And the third type is not to determine which is which. So undetermined. So your material has this nice diagram. So the semantic property could be could be to add as true. So it's a kind of to modify. And we can tell now, so good friend, or red balloon. So a red balloon is a kind of a balloon. And a large room is a kind of a room. And good friend is a kind of a friend. So we have truth of the adjective. An adjective X is an X, a kind of X. So a red balloon is a balloon. So a red ball is a ball or a kind of a ball. But now we have belying, as Abdullah said. So no longer. So here to have this rule, okay, but here it is not. So it's false. And now we in the third one we cannot tell. So in the third row we cannot tell whether it is true or false. So good red large plus a noun results of this rule. So a kind of, and this is true. The second type of adjectives we have added to nouns, we belie or negate or so not a kind of. So it's false. So not a kind of. An adjective X is an X, no, not a kind of X. And the third type is we cannot determine, we cannot tell whether now the murderer, so this person is actually a murderer or not. So an alleged. وضروري نعرف معاني بقية الكلمات يا إخوان والأخوات. So when we see an alleged murderer, this means that we cannot determine whether it is true or false. It's a nice semantic rule. وكأنه الآن تعرف تكتب قواعد علم الدلالة باستعمال الدايجرام هذا. Okay. The house with the white fence. This is not a sentence. It's a phrase. Now, discuss the semantic rules needed to account for the meaning of this phrase. You remember when we discussed the lexical semantics and we talked about semantic properties. Now, we need to know how to put words together to make a phrase or a sentence. And now this requires thinking of the properties of each word and how these properties are added to. So, عشان نبسط المعلومة, so we can talk about now the properties of the different articles there. And the semantic properties of the noun house. So you know what we mean by house. It's like a place to live. So semantic properties. Now we have the semantic properties of the article, the different article that added to the house. So it's now a particular house. So now with the white fence, we have like a prepositional phrase added to modify, so more specification. So not any, so it's different, but still now we go down, so we know which house. So with the house with the white fence. Now we should know semantic properties of each item again in the phrase. So with has the semantic properties of what? Of accompaniment, المرافقة وأبيها. And you know again the semantic properties of the different article. And what we mean by white, it's a color. And what we mean by fence, and now how to put them together, and now putting all words. So we have 6 words put together to make the phrase. So in order to discuss the semantic rules needed to account for, we need to think of semantic properties of each word, and then how to go larger and larger until we end with this phrase, the house with the white fence. Okay. Now, what is the difference between red brick and the brick red? الكلام لمحمد الوشاحي. محمد الوشاع موجود؟
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
تفضل يا أستاذ.
Yes, doctor. Red break is a break that's red. A break is the head. But a break red is a shade of red because red is the head of the adjective phrase.
Excellent. Now, we have now two phrases with the same words, but now the word order results in difference in the head of the phrase. So when the first, this blue phrase is called a noun phrase, made up of the adjective red and the noun break, which is also single noun to make a phrase. So the head of the phrase is a noun, so it is called noun phrase. So a red brick is a kind of a brick that is red. But now brick red is not now a kind of a brick.
A kind of color.
A kind of this color called brick. إذا أنواع الألوان اللون الأحمر يختلف. Now we have إذا أحمر طوبي. So now we have this kind of red color. And the difference results from ينتج عن مين? The word order. And now we have two phrases with two heads, with two different heads. The first phrase has the brick as a head, which is a noun, and it is called a noun phrase. The second is an adjective phrase. تمام? The meanings nearly always center on the head of the phrase. Discussed briefly, you can give examples of how combination of words results in ينتج عنها different phrases. So we have now a noun phrase and the head is the noun. And the meaning also we have the meaning of the whole phrase is a noun phrase. So semantic properties of again a noun phrase. So the tall boy. We have here boy as a head. It's a noun. And we can talk about now it's so the meaning of these three words, the tall boy is based on the head. So a boy who is tall and so on. And we can give more examples. So centering on the head, not necessarily to have just noun phrases. We may have adjective phrases like the example given earlier in the previous slide, question 12. So brick red. So again, we have this, the head is an adjective. So the meaning is centered or based on focus. We have red as an adjective. And it's the phrase, an adjective phrase. Question. What is the difference between dog, house?
Can I answer this, Doctor?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor. Yes, Doctor.
عماد بسرعة يا شباب.
دكتور أنا ما جاوبت.
مريض اليوم يا دكتور.
عماد موجود. عماد موجود
من حضرتك يا دكتور.
جاوبت.
خليني بس اسمع. عماد حاضر ولا غايب اليوم؟
لا غايب يا دكتور. بيعتذر من حضرتك. مريض معلش وبيعتذر. كلفنا بلغة
دكتور أحمد أجاوب أنا دكتور أحمد لولو.
مع أحمد لولو توكل. تفضل. تفضل أحمد.
Okay, so the differences between dog house and house dog, that the dog house is a kind of a house, namely that one who is suitable for dogs. Good. But a house dog is kind of a dog.
So again, we have these two compounds include two free morphemes, dog and house. But now the word order, so the order of these morphemes differ. So and we have difference in meaning. So a dog house is a house. And house dog is a dog. So a dog house is a house, a place that where we keep dogs. And the house dog is a dog that guards houses. يعني أو is raised at home. A house dog. Okay. Now we have three questions.
Yes.
Well.
Yes, doctor.
Could we consider dog house and house dogs as androcentric compound?
We have different types of compounds. Sometimes we have peak. Sometimes it's not easy to tell. We are coming now. Different types. وطبعا في بسمة هتشتغل على compounds topic research. So we can go further. So we sometimes have compounds with hyphenation, sometimes without hyphenation, sometimes with a space. So dog house is now used so 2 free morphemes to put together without a space. But mother-in-law, we have 3 morphemes with hyphenation. And when we say high school, we have a space, and this is something that we also need to know when we learn a language, whether that we have a space or not. So a definite article has a space in English, so the boy or the difference. But in Arabic, for example, we don't have a space, الولد أو المدرسة أو الاختلاف. So again, part of your knowledge about the language which you are studying or which you are using. Thank you. Now, these 3 phrases or compounds can be briefly analyzed, and I think there is some difference. So let's have
Yes, Dr. Basma.
بس ما جاوبتش اليوم. بس تفضل يا بس.
Yes, doctor. We have, for example, the head strong is an adjective. The head is an adjective. And we have the noun verb compound with spoon feed is a verb, and the verb noun compound big pocket is a noun, and so on. So we have the.
So headstrong is very good. Basma. Headstrong is a compound which is an adjective. And this is now like so the strong comes last, and normally the head comes last. So headstrong, an adjective preceded by a noun. So we have different vocabulary, so lexical categories or part of speech put together, and now how we put them together results in the meaning or gives us now with the meaning of the compound. Headstrong is an adjective, and I think it's is an adjective with a bad meaning. عنيد, who doesn't accept advice, or sometimes not following advice or not listening to advice. Spoon feed, those who take things easily, or sometimes some teachers spoon feed their students. بده الشيء على الجاهز الولد, and teachers sometimes do that. So this is not a good technique of teaching. Spoon feed students. So there should be something that the students do on their own, not to have things ready made. And pickpocket is a person who steals money from pockets. So a noun. So we can analyze, لو احنا بنتكلم هنفصل, لكن a brief semantic analysis. Now in the blue one, this headstrong, we have head as a noun added to an adjective, and the result is an adjective. And we can talk about now the rule. So what we mean by this adjective. So having now properties of head and now strong. So you can think of now, you can guess the meaning. And spoon feed, we have a noun added to a verb. And now pickpocket, a verb added to a noun. You see here a noun added to a verb added to a noun, and so on. So how words, how morphemes are put together involves the rules that should be learned in order to master a language or to learn the language. What is the difference between a gooseneck and redneck?
Can I answer?
Yes, Doctor. Yes, Doctor Rasha.
Is not
Yes,
part of
Doctor.
the material, but I added it. غادة الرشدي.
Can I answer?
Go ahead, guys. غادة.
Yes, gooseneck is a kind of a neck because the head word here is neck. But redneck is an exception. It's a type of person, not a type of neck.
تمام. So gooseneck is like a shape of a neck. Could be so we may have a goose neck lamp for discs. يعني احيانا بتلاقي الاباجوره هذه اللي to help you to read or used for reading. So so it's like a lamp as like goose neck shaped. Could be. So again, it's a kind or shape of neck. But red neck is totally different. And one difficult part of language learning is these exceptions. So we have general rules, but still we have some exceptions. Exceptions in regular verbs, exceptions in now putting words together like this example. So redneck is totally different. And it must be learned like separately. We don't have a rule now. A redneck is a person أخرق أو متخلف again conservative وبسيط ونيم. So we have so a redneck is not a kind of a neck or not a shape of a neck. It's a person. And how to tell part of the language هم كده agreed upon. You remember this idea of semantics is defined as the study of agreed upon meaning. So those who use English or native speakers of English have agreed upon the meaning of redneck. So redneck violates or doesn't follow the semantic rules of gooseneck or other examples we gave earlier. Okay. Now, this hot topic, الكلام اللي ممكن يكون شوية دسم أو ممكن يكون شوية جديد علينا. So what is sense and what is reference?
Yes, Doctor.
رشا الهمز. رشا.
Yes.
Could you tell me what we mean by sense? What we mean by reference?
Reference is.
And I think there are some other technical terms that can be used. So sense can be sometimes called
intention.
Intention. Yeah, intention.
Reference can be intention with S spelling.
Yeah.
And reference extension. Okay. Yeah. So okay.
Reference is
Sense. What does it mean? Sense. What do you mean by sense?
Sense, knowing the meaning of certain noun phrase and knowing how to discover what objective the noun phrase refer to.
So sense. This makes sense.
Sense. Can I say something? It has meaning, but that doesn't have a reference.
So
Doctor,
these
sense
are two different entities.
Yes, Doctor.
Can I complete? Yeah.
تفضلي.
And reference, knowing the meaning of the noun phrase, like the red brick, enables to use the identity and identify the objective being referred to.
Now, think of them as two different technical terms with two different two different things. So sense is the meaning. So and if there is a phrase or a combination of words if they have meaning, so they have sense. Now, what they refer to is the reference. So a phrase, for example, the tall boy with an umbrella. So now, the tall boy with an umbrella, we know that this is a phrase, and it has meaning. So it has sense. The tall boy with an umbrella. The tall boy with an umbrella. So total combinations, we have now meanings of the words now put together. We have now the whole phrase. So we talk about phrasal semantics. So the phrase has meaning.
Can I have an example?
What it refers to. So if it has meaning, it has sense. Now we know that the boy with an umbrella has meaning, so it has sense. Now, if you want now to think of what it refers to, does it refer to your brother or to your cousin or to the boy in front of your house? This is what we mean by
identify it. Yeah.
This object, person, or something that is referred to. So you see what we mean now. With sense and reference. Sense is the meaning, and some phrases have no sense. عشان كده بنقول لك this is nonsense. إيش الكلام الفاضي. So again, we should think of this. So a phrase that has meaning is a phrase that has sense. And sometimes the phrase refers to an object, or refers to something, or refers to somebody. So it has reference. So what is referred to? So this idea of now, so the reference, the concept of referring, it has reference. Now, we should differentiate between reference and referent. Reference and referent. Now, what's now the difference between reference بالCE and referent T? What's the difference?
Can I?
referent المشار إليه.
أيوة. So فكرة الإشارة.
Pointed to referent.
The concept of now. So this idea referring to, but now. So it has the reference, بمعنى it refers to something. This thing or this person, could be somebody, is the referent, المشار إليه. So the boy with an umbrella has reference. Now it refers to somebody. Now what is that person is the referent. What is that person is the referent, المشار إليه. قد يكون أخوك أو ابنك أو بنتك أو ابن الجيران أو في الحارة. Okay, so this idea of reference versus sense, and it's interesting it's important to distinguish between sense and reference, because not all phrases have sense and not all phrases have reference. تمام. نشوف. So what does coreferential mean?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
What does coreferential mean?
What does this mean?
Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, go ahead. زياد أبو طارق. تفضل أبو طارق. ولا سجود العطار. سجود ما شاركتش اليوم. سجود is سجود present. Are you there سجود؟
كانت سجود موجودة بس كانوا صار إشي عندهم طلعت الليست.
دكتور أنا عبد الكريم خالد ما شاركتش.
يعطيك العافية يا دكتور.
عبد الكريم تفضل. عبد الكريم.
يس دكتور.
تفضل يا عبد الكريم.
co-referential, it means that there are many nouns, phrases. There is more to meaning than just one reference. It means that we have more than one reference. For example, the noun phrases the red brick and the first brick from the right may refer to the same object.
تمام. الكلام اللي في الماتيريال this stuff in the material is interesting. It's nice. But you need now to be creative. يا إخوان بكرة بدنا نعلم الكلام هذا وبكرة بدنا نكتب. So don't memorize examples. I recommend you be creative and use your own examples. Now, co-referential from the morpheme co. So we have now co. We have co-authors, we have co-workers, we have and so on. Now, when two phrases refer to the same entity, to the same thing or object, person, this means that they are co-referential.
They have the same reference.
Like Umar bin al-Khattab al-Faruq. When we say
عمر بن الخطاب والفاروق
نعم.
أبو أحمد النبي and the teacher of Semantics and Lexicology course.
Yeah.
You see what I mean by now being co-referential? Sometimes a noun phrase and a pronoun, which is also a noun phrase, can be co-referential. When Samira went into the room, she switched on the light. Now we know that she and Samira are co-referential, referring to the same person. Tamam? So referring to the same person or referring to the same thing. So when two phrases, utterances, refer to the same entity, the same object, the same person, the same thing, so they involve co-referentiality or are called co-referential. And you can give examples. So the boy with an umbrella اللي تو حكينا معاه قبل شويه ممكن يكون سمير بن ابو محمود. You see what I mean now? سمير اسماعيل or سمير. So you see we have Samir Ismail with this context referring to the same person, the boy with an umbrella اللي حامل الشمس. And you can give more and more examples. So it's not difficult to understand.
Can I give you an example?
أنا متأكد هتقدري وكله يقدر. تمام. اتفضل.
خليل البطش معك. والله أنا كنت في الشغل وهلقيت روحت فانضميت لكم. معلش ما كنتش لما نديت علي. آسف.
طيب أهلا وسهلا. بالمهمين بيجوا متأخرين. ماشي. الله يعطيك العافية والحمد لله على السلامة. إجازة اليوم.
الله يعافيك.
لكن في ناس إذا ما اشتغلتش ما كانتش عايش. ماشي الله يعطيك العافيه. اهلا وسهلا. درست المسائل الفايل او 4 بيجز خليل؟ خلينا نديك السؤال هذا. وخليل, do proper names have sense?
No, I don't know. Because for example, Muhammad is a proper name. It doesn't have a sense.
Why not? Muhammad min al-Hamd. Why not? You see the idea of sense?
I mean when you particularly speak,
do proper names have sense? We can say yes. not all of them.
Not all proper names.
Not all proper names have sense. Some or maybe many. إذا في اللغة العربية كثير من الأسماء العلم لها معاني. So this is what we mean by sense. But yes. Some proper names or nouns have no sense. So they just have reference. They refer to an entity. So you see what the difference between now sense and reference? So yes, we sometimes have a reference but no sense. Sometimes we have the sense but and so on. It's no reference. هنشوف الأمثلة اللي احنا طلبناها منك. أنا قربنا نخلص المحاضرة. الان question 19 واظن هم 21. So once again, proper names, not all proper names or nouns have sense. طبعا you can give examples. نقول جميل. So this ولا so سعيدة ولا so we may have sense in the proper noun. But what about now the sense in the word Tom or the word Susan or the word so the proper noun so Peter. So some proper nouns or in English or many proper nouns in English have no sense. But this doesn't mean that all have sense or all have no sense. So we have, so the sentence as written is tricky. So proper names have sense. ما اقدرش اقول true or false. لازم تديني يعني these frequency always or sometimes or usually or so. لو قلت لك الان proper nouns always have sense. False. لو قلت لك not all nouns not all proper nouns or names have sense. True. تمام. Now the President of the United States. So still now you see we are thinking of the difference between a sense as a concept and reference as a concept. Now does the President of the United States have one reference? So by the way,
no.
Now خلينا نسأل السؤال بطريقة ثانية. Does this phrase اللون الأزرق does it have sense?
Yes. It has sense, yes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Does it have reference?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
It does, but at that time.
Sometimes the reference is not enduring. يعني not one. So it's changeable. So the reference may change. قد يتغير المشار إليه over time. So in, for example, 1997, we have a president of the United States who is different from 2005 or 2016 or just nowadays. So now the president of the United States in 2020 is Donald Trump. But السنة الجاية so 2021 في 2021 في يناير القادم so we would have a different
reference.
So a different reference. So now it's not now the same reference. So we know that it has a meaning and it refers to a president, but now which entity to refer to? Joe Biden in 2021 by January 21. So you got my
more than one reference.
So some noun phrases again have more than one reference. لو جبت لك سؤال من المريخ كده give an example شد شعراتك. So again the president of the United States is a good example, but مش ضروري ننسخ من الكتاب. Now you can be creative and give الآن في عمارة فيها شقق ويقبلكم كل شهرين ثلاثة بتغير المستأجر ولا كل سنة أو سنواتين. You see now the tenant next door. The tenant next door has meaning, has sense, and it has reference. But this reference is not one reference. It could be أبو فلان الله ينعم عليه واشترى له بيت ليش يضل يستأجر. You see the idea of now enduring and changing. And the last question is this idea of A noun phrase with no with sense but no meaning, no reference, sorry. With meaning but no reference. الكلام بكتاب وأظني الآن بنقدر نألف حاجات كثيرة مثال عليه. So what's now the nice a good example? What is a good example of this statement? يلا يا شباب يا صبايا يا اخوان. So students, guys.
Can I answer, doctor?
So again, we need to think of a phrase that has
Yes,
meaning.
doctor.
That has meaning. في لها معنى, but we cannot find a reference.
Can I answer? Yes, doctor.
تفضل يا استاذ احمد الفرة. اسمع صوتك اليوم. احمد الفرة اسمع تفضل. خلينا نختمها
Yes, as an example of other noun phrases that lack a reference, when we say the present king of France is bald. By the year 3000, our descendants will have left Earth.
Now, one example is enough. So give an example. ودير بالك يا اخويا ويا اختي. تلتزم تعليمات التمرين وعشان ما نغلطش وتعمل جوابين ونقي يا دكتور ما ينفعش. ما انت لما تروح مطعم وتطلب حمص ويجيب لك حمص وفول تاخذ الحمص وبتسيب الفول. لا ما ينفعش. Give an example. One example that you are certain about or so confident. So the present king of France. is Paul ولا. Now it has meaning. It has sense. ملك فرنسا الحالي. ملك فرنسا الحالي. اللي عنده خبرة في التاريخ ولا باك جراوند نوليدج about the world. Do you know that France is not a kingdom. ليست مملكة. You see now when we say the present king of France, we have meaning. ملك فرنسا الحالي ملك فرنسا الحالي لها معنى, but it doesn't have reference because
France is not a kingdom.
France is not a kingdom. It has no king. So we cannot find someone to refer to using this phrase.
Or we can say the present president of France is Muslim.
ممكن the present
president of France is Muslim.
لا هي معلومة بتصير.
president of طبعا بتقول الآن
ممكن تقول الجمهورية الإسلامية the Republic of France, the Republic Islamic of France.
هندرس في حاجة اسمها contradiction. So it has meaning but no truth. هنشوف. But now let's just think of a good example. No one to refer to or nothing to refer to. يعني ممكن يكون في إشارة وفي الآن لكن هو مش مسلم ولكن الآن نشير له لكن إسلامه ودينه موضوع مختلف. We talk about now an entity that is يعني not available to refer to.
كان
fictional. حتى كان fictional ممكن نتكلم على الهولة ولا. So still we have to refer to but no reference using this nice sentence. The present king of France. وممكن نقيس عليها the present king of Palestine ولا السلطة الفلسطينية أبو مازن الملك. لا مش
أو رئيس فلسطين جميلة مثلا.
تمام. Okay. Now
we are talking about phrase not sentence.
مش ضروري أنا الكلام يعني تاخدي بالك لما أنا بديت محاضرتي I used brackets. الموضوع كان عبارة عن phrasal and sentential semantics and some books use brackets. So phrasal or sentential can be discussed under one topic. So still with the idea of putting words together could result in a phrase or a whole sentence. But the idea is how to put them together. So we have rules, semantic rules, syntactic rules, and so on. and this is part of our knowledge of the language. I think this is enough about our the last slide, which is not part of the questions I sent you. I think it is nice, it is easy to read. We know that verbs are central in language, and sometimes we can go further and classify or sub-classify verbs into transitive and intransitive, and the transitive can be ditransitive and mono. So we need now to think of what comes after the verb, and so now whether now it can be used alone without an object, or must have two objects, or sometimes an object with a prepositional phrase, like he put the bag on the table, or he told me a joke, or he stood up, or he cried. So these are verbs that are central in the language. They play a central role, and they have their semantic rules. And if we go further, مش هتكفي محاضرة اليوم. I think this is enough about our first part of the lecture, lecture number 9. And by, I think find is a nice example. So requires an animate subject and selects a direct object. You see now, he found a job, or he found me a job. You see, could be ditransitive or more transitive. And now when we say he, so animate, we can say the dog found a bone. So animate could be again an animal or a person, but not something. For example, the book found ما ينفعش. The book found a job. You see how semantic rules are needed in order to think of or to master a language. Principle of compositionality is important, is significant. It's not enough to know the meanings of words. We still need to know how to put these words together to make phrases and sentences within rules, semantic rules, syntactic rules, and so on. Put is also a nice example of verbs that are stored in your mental dictionary with certain rules. So put something on. So we have a direct object. So put the umbrella on the table. So we have locative meaning. So prepositional phrase on the table. So we have direct object. So he put the umbrella on the table. So we have locative meaning. المكان الوضع. So put something. So still we know that this verb is different from cry. So we can say he cried, or she cried, or the baby cried, but not he put. So he put is not a good sentence. Why? Because there is something missing. Part of the semantic rules of the verb put is we have the principle of compositionality being used within this pattern. A direct object and then a prepositional phrase to show the location. Okay. نختم ونقول سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. نكتفي بالقدر الأول هذا من المحاضرة. And we can meet after the break for let's say, to have the 4 presenters and presentations.
Yes, Doctor. Yes, أنا
أول واحدة. Stop the recording عشان